Okay, hey everybody, I am Anti-Aaron and I'll be doing this Final Fantasy VII Remake Ballet over Hardcore Uprising, all 5 characters. Every character is going to have a unique track from Final Fantasy VII, so that none of these runs will be redundant and repetitive of having the same song over and over and over again. It's basically witnessing a ballet play or a movie of a speedrun, which is a fun showcase. And okay, countdown. 3, 2, 1, go.
Is all that remains of a once powerful note. Right now, you're on the threshold of an amazing adventure. Showtime.
All right, so hi everyone. My name is Sewer Husk, and I'll be taking over commentary for Anti-Aaron's Hardcore Uprising Final Fantasy VII Ballet Speedrun. My work with Hardcore Uprising consists of the Minimalist No Damage Challenge, which is what brought me to do the commentary today. Thank you very much for this, Anti-Aaron. Today we're seeing the Leviathan speedrun as the first character. Leviathan is great arsenal compared to the majority of characters in the game, and he features quite unique movement along with, unfortunately, a very restricted life bar from other characters.
The mic is off. The mic is, I unplugged it.
Has to upgrade their weaponry and ammunition or assets. Leviathan as a character has a slot for only one weapon at a time, and he has, can I say, he has enhanced speed, jump, movement, and mobility. In his case, he also possesses the ability to slide, backflip, and throw grenades. This is going to be a very, very common feature during the speedrun, because if ammo is unavailable for Leviathan, the best resort is to go straight for the grenade spamming, which is done with a single button. When it comes to the grenade spamming, if a direction is inputted for Leviathan, such as up and down, it's going to get him to perform the movement abilities rather than shooting grenades. So that's something to keep in consideration. Now, for these strategies, or for this run, Anti-Aaron is going full speed, and he's taking full advantage of Leviathan's increased mobility, given the fact that he is one of the fastest characters to be found in the game. He will be rushing through bosses at incredible speed and with incredible power, not only because he is leveled up, but because Leviathan lends himself to such good usage of weapons. This already concludes almost the very first stage of the game, which is the desert. That one has, as you've seen, a sinking mechanic, which does impair the movement of the player while on the ground. But in the upcoming level, Leviathan's speed will be on full display, without any interruption from the game's physics, so that should be very fun to look at. And now we already concluded the boss of the very first level, which set the ground for the rest of the run as Leviathan. A lot of good things are on the way, so with that, welcome to Anti-Aaron's Hardcore Uprising Final Fantasy VII Ballet performance, and good things to come. And now we already concluded the boss of the very first level, which set the ground for the rest of the run as Leviathan. A lot of good things are on the way. Oh, Aaron, I think, yeah, okay. Perfect. So now we'll be entering stage 2. Stage 2 is definitely one of the greater levels in the game. The stage design is very linear. There will be no obstacles in your way compared to stage 1, and this is very beneficial for a character such as Leviathan, which means that you go full speed in horizontal at all times while using your ammo to the fullest capacity. So the good thing about stage 2 is that it's very diverse and very elaborate, despite being only a very horizontally focused level. The layout changes, there's a variety of enemies, as the pitch that can impair your movement. The graphics are very pleasant, and the strategies involved are pretty creative at times, because there's an upper path available that comes with its own risk, and there's also the bottom path, which is recommended for when a character is fully powered, such as the flame gun, which you're seeing right now, or the heated plasma gun, as it's referred to in Contra. Now entering for the mini-boss, we are seeing a very particular boss right here. That one, when it receives enough damage, will split itself in two. And then you can chase it around, or you can stick to only one of the two parts and destroy it at your leisure. Of course, Anti-Aaron made a very, very short fight of this one, and now proceeds to the last half of the level. This one will start introducing obstacles, which will bring about some interesting strategies. He can't rely on the momentum of going constantly right, so that means he has to adjust his positioning as well as the timing of his attacks. He used the underpath, which is a very risky strat, and went on guns blazing. I can definitely see this was to minimize the risk and just optimize his speed. So he took a risk to minimize the risks, which was objectively a good option. Now we're fighting Knight Forsaker, which is, as you've seen Leviathan's next to, another very short boss fight done by the mighty Leviathan. And there we go, boss is down. Normally this is a very involved and complex fight, but given the firepower, it's been reduced to nearly nothing. But with that, beautiful stage, well executed, and interrupted in some steps by the unfortunate fish here and there, and we're now entering stage 3. During stage 3, a big reference to Indiana Jones and many other things, but we'll be focusing on that a little later. Stage 3's particularity comes from the fact that it's filled with traps, a variety of obstacles, from enemies hidden in the walls, from spiked wheels moving up and down, and another variety of things I won't spoil just yet. We've got Anti going guns blazing in there, and in a matter of seconds has reached the very first mini-boss. 573 Tigris. 573 Tigris. This one is an interesting battle as it restricts a lot of how your character is going to operate, given the fact that the entire battle is now turned to a corridor. Thanks to Rising Mode and Leviathan's Might, we're already out of there, and now we can do Indiana Jones. Okay, is it better now? Okay, great. So I'll just continue. Thank you for letting me know. So, proceeding, we're now already reaching the last half of the level. Here we have a locked room in which the giant boulders are still coming to trap the player while a spiked ceiling is coming down. With Leviathan's incredible firepower and speed, we made it out very quickly, and we're now preparing for the actual boss of the stage, which is pretty interesting. Okay, I'll switch device and I'll be back in a few seconds. Okay, is the microphone better? Okay, wonderful. All right. So if everything's all right, I guess I can proceed. Everything's good? Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. So as we are right now, Auntie is already done with the boss, which was very short-lived. We will be entering stage 4, which is an auto-scroller on steroids, which, as per tradition, at least one of those is featured in all Contra games ever, except for maybe the NES ones. So maybe it's not in as many Contra games as I make it sound, at least in Contra 3 and Contra Hardcore. All right, entering stage 4, a very, very charged auto-scroller. On my first few times with this level, I wasn't sure, but this one has so much action on it at almost all times that it's really worth it. So the majority of this level consists of being chased by the police forces. So throughout the entirety, you will have police cars trying to crash into you or to block your path, while having a variety of enemies, mostly airborne, trying to drop projectiles on you or to shoot them directly at you. Some helicopters will also show up, and different types of robots. The strategy here most of the time is to not stay in one single spot of the screen. The more variety in your movement and more precision in your positioning is what's going to bring the best results for this one. Luckily, with Leviathan, such a level becomes very accessible. Despite the fact that in arcade mode he would only have 1 HP, here it's not a problem. So the freedom of movement is much more present and felt during a Rising speedrun. Normally, this is a very competent mini-boss if played in arcade, but given that this is Leviathan, we know exactly what to expect. The rest of stage 4 is also really fun. The variety of enemies starts showing up a lot more, and the scenery is also going to start changing soon enough. Now things are getting a bit crazy here with the cars colliding into one another, and we are entering what I consider to be the fun part of the level very, very soon. As for Auntie, solid performance, very good stage execution. All of the shots are fired on point. Everything has been very precise. And the police cars are not giving him any issues either. All right. So this is interesting because he cleaned the entire screen and rid the screen of enemies so quick that he practically got a quiet segment where the game is expecting you to still be fighting but hasn't loaded what's to come yet. So he could just relax there for a couple of seconds and just wait for the next section of the level. The risk factor of the level is going to be increasing. Now you're inside a tunnel, and it begins to feel a lot more cluttered. These police cars now have the power to generate electricity, which is used to restrict and impair the player's movement. In Rising mode, and certainly with a character such as Leviathan, given his speed and double jump ability, triple jump if I remember correctly, the problems from this situation are completely negated, and the laser from the police car poses no threats. Normally, if there is no mobility for him, you can simply duck under and then adjust yourself accordingly. All right. What happened just now was one of the trickiest because you're not expected to stick on the right side of the screen, and you have to react instantly to the cars that were already crashed. So that's usually a cheap moment where you take unnecessary damage, but given the fact that there was a mini-boss immediately after said segment, I can see why they did it. Although in a regular arcade run it does add to the difficulty quite a bit. This boss has multiple phases and it's just a damage sponge. He dies very quickly despite his tankiness, and he has a phase where it's falling debris. With a good weapon, or even with a sword, which is available with a certain character in this game, you can dismiss a lot of the dangers caused by this boss, and maybe the lack of space for you to maneuver around with. With this mini-boss down, we're now entering the final, or the last third of this stage, given the fact that it's divided. You have a total of 2 mini-bosses, 2 solid mini-bosses, and the final boss of this stage at the end. The game is providing you with certain types of weapons, making them optional, and there's also some HP that is available for collection. However, with anti-Aaron, we don't need those. We are more than fine. Now we're approaching the boss of the stage, which is Lux Corona. Looks like a Beyblade. A Beyblade with very distinctive weak spots, and that shoots lasers, and that grows in size with its limbs as you damage it, and has a pink... I wouldn't know how to describe this thing. Let's just all agree that it's a Beyblade and everything is fine. Anti is doing the strategy, which consists of destroying the very distinctive weak spots, opening up a certain segment of the boss's armor. Once that is done, you have to step inside and destroy. You have a choice, the interior or external weak spots. If you focus on the interior ones, you're going to cause the other ones to collapse and fall apart, which is a way to get rid of this boss more quickly. Now we're entering what feels like a little bullet hell segment, and you now have to think in 3D because of the way the boss moves around. Despite this being 2D, that's a very tricky segment. The boss here is quite dangerous. A lot of projectiles, he has a desperation attack, and his movement, he takes up a lot of space on the screen, and things can get messy very quickly. The boss has been defeated, and normally he's a very fun parry fest, but now we watch him collapse, and his season of Beyblade is over. A very clean stage, very good performance, very, very well executed dodges throughout the level, and we'll be entering stage 5. Stage 5, also known as the Metal Gear stage, because it features an optional stealth mechanic. I would say that in speedruns, they are completely ignored every single segment because we go in guns blazing. When you are spotted by the enemy, they will sound the alarm and additional forces will arrive to try and take you down. In a speedrun, we don't even think twice. We straight up go for it and just destroy everything in our path. Very action-packed when the enemies know that you're coming for them, when the alarms have been activated. The stage itself will have its tricky moments. None of them have showed up yet. And we're now entering the factory part of the stage. That one has these giant conveyor belts which impair your movement and make things difficult for you, given the fact that they push against you constantly and you're running against them with enemies expecting you. Some of them can shoot projectiles. Some of them will explode upon being defeated, and they will cause hazards for the player. Now we've entered the first boss room. This one can normally cause issues on either a no damage or an arcade run, such as the no death. Very silly mistakes can happen here. The biggest danger from this boss has been completely ignored and bypassed by Anti-Aaron due to the speed of destruction that he has. This boss perishes, and the entrance to the furnace is now opened. The furnace is literally out to kill you. The bottom pit is an instant death, as per many things in Contra games, and the conveyor belts are still present, and fly enemies are there to grab you and just truly drop you into the pit. Thankfully, due to Rising Mode and Leviathan, we're able to skip the majority of it and make our lives much more comfy. We will now push through the laboratory segment and enter the only part of the game which is looked down upon. That's the Geomandrake escort. God knows why they have included this, but we are going to be escorting this guy until the very, very end of the level, and thank God it's a short segment. Geomandrake does in fact take damage, so unfortunately you kind of have to take the escort seriously. No one wants to take it seriously, but here we are. Thankfully, it's been a very short-lived segment with Geomandrake. He leaves and we are left with the actual boss for this level. Describing the Beyblade from the previous stage was a lot easier. This thing looks like a baby that's inside a 3D Rubik's Cube that only consists of 2 colors, and yet no one would know how to solve it. It has 2 arms which you need to destroy first before you get to damage the actual boss himself. Depending on your weapon and your positioning, they can pose very, very little threat. Which character you're using also plays a big role in this. However, if you can deal with them accordingly, the boss himself is not really that dangerous, especially if you have the heated plasma. And with that, the 5th boss of the game perishes, and we soon will be entering Stage 6, which is, in its own regards, quite comfy and very pleasant, but still crowded and not to be underestimated by any means. Okay, so the train stage, another auto-scroller, but this one is a lot more chill than the city we were in earlier. This one is a very unique stage. It seems like a boring, slow train segment, but it compensates with its lack of speed by keeping the player constantly busy. You'll notice enemies will be appearing on the left and on the right. Some of them will spawn directly on the wagon. Helicopters will show up. It will be crowded almost the entire time. And as you expect from such a game, mini-boss will indeed show up. I should put that mini-bosses, because there's going to be more than one. And I don't want to spoil that segment just yet, but after this one, we'll be seeing a very interesting mechanic. The corridors themselves keep busy by having these very cruel flamethrowers positioned up and down in a way that you must not get too accustomed with, because they will sometimes try to trick you, and it's happened to the best of us. We get a little more of this mechanic, some sliding using Leviathan's unique mobility moves. And now we're entering a very interesting segment. We're provided an optional weapon, but considering the heated plasma, we're more than well geared. The upper wagons have now made their entrance, which adds a brand new layer of complexity to the level. Things were already crowded in the left and right, and now we have to worry about vertical and the vertical's new left and right. Furthermore, we're going to see an interesting mechanic which poses a new threat for the player. So in here, managing the amount of enemies on screen is practically everything. If you're not fast enough, you will get overcrowded and things will go wrong. Thanks to Leviathan, anti-air skills, and the incredible mobility, this will not be a problem. So now we're relocated to only the top half of the screen. The enemies won't show us any mercy, and we're given the comfort of a wider available amount of wagons on the screen. Now, why did I bring the top row up as being a very strict half? Is because wagons are not indestructible. They are subject to damage, and they are subject to the stage's, I would say, the stage's decision for them. Sometimes they will crash, sometimes they will collapse, sometimes they will be destroyed and blow up, sometimes they will become unreliable. And if you do not manage everything that is on screen, you will be completely screwed by the fact that the wagon you needed is no longer available. And this can cause some extremely tricky situations. Now we're arriving at the very first mini-boss for this stage. The best option is to stick on the left side of the screen and destroy every single of its cannons, in this case, 3, before they have the proper time to become a threat. This really speeds up the level and allows you to enter the next portion of it. Now the enemies are going to become a little bit more serious. There's going to be a bit less screwing around. Those enemies that we've seen it's mostly in stage 5, have the ability to explode upon being defeated. When they explode, 4 to 5 fragments of their body is going to be thrown around. If they damage you, it can cause the loss of a weapon, depending on the character. Now we're fighting a very cool Transformer, who I would say sadistically limits you to only 2 wagons on the screen. In Rising, we can handle it perfectly. Oh, and he tried to limit anti-air to only 1, but the wagons can come back. In an arcade run, or maybe the no-death trophy, this can become a problem, because the lack of space for such a huge boss that has such devastating attacks can really turn the tables around, making the rest of the stage a very, very miserable thing. But you don't have to take my word for it. Just look at the boss that we're about to face. That's right. So not only are the trains a challenge on their own, now we're fighting in a vertical segment. For this fight, the boss is going to take the pure center of the screen while trying to manage the wagons on each side. What makes this tricky is that, as you may have guessed, in fact, the wagons can be destroyed. They are not immune to damage, and they're not immune to the boss, and the boss shoots projectiles, and also enables his second form. He becomes more dangerous and has a very high influence and impact on the wagons, with the ability to destroy one complete side of it with simply one swing of his laser. Thankfully, we are spared this misery and will now enter stage number 7, which I have a lot to say about. It's definitely a mouthful, but it's a good one. And it's by far, at least in my opinion, the most action-packed level of the game. Okay, so this mission starts with a literal bang, and the rest of it consists about going crazy and moving to the right, destroying everything in sight and not think twice. If you hesitate in your movement, the stage will most likely catch you for it, and a weapon is not something you want to lose in such a level. The amount of enemies here compared to any previous stage is very threatening, not necessarily because of their attack, but because of the sheer amount of enemies that are present on the screen at the same time. What's interesting here is that as you progress, the enemies are already there waiting for you. They're not spawning. They've been pre-positioned. So plowing your way through them requires either very good improvisation or a very good planning. In this case, clearly we have very good planning for it. And now we get to relax and enjoy an elevator segment, for which I'll be quiet, so just enjoy the melody. If you have a drink, feel free to take a sip. It's completely appropriate. It's just like a real-life elevator. I mean, for the most part. Actually, no, forget what I said. I hope real-life elevators don't crash like that. I'm sorry. Let's just focus on the game, the chill music, and the fact that the stage is ever moving. Now, this is an auto-scroller, yes, but it is not infinite. You absolutely need to destroy all the enemies before it stops looping and the segment ends. Interestingly enough, it also serves as a loading screen for the rest of the level. We are able to skip the very first set of wall lasers for this segment, and we don't have that benefit later on. However, for now, we don't need we don't need to worry very much about that segment. What we have to worry about is climbing from the exterior, and oh god, please don't let these snipers get you. And we also have a helicopter. What kind of Hollywood inspiration game would this be without a helicopter? Oh no, I mean there's another one. If you get a plural of helicopters, you know you've got something on your hands. Now we've got another elevator segment, for which I will also be quiet. Just take a sip and relax. No, I'm kidding. I wanted the surprise to be in full effect. There is no relaxation here. This is the Contra 3 missile segment done vertically. It's missile after missile after missile, and you just pray for it to end. When you want it to end, it feels like it'll never end. When you have this one life in a run that you want to protect, you would do anything for this to be over. In missile after missile, you can damage them if you're masochistic enough, and it quickly becomes a problem because you're afraid that you'll run out of missiles, or if you do not grab one of them successfully, the punishment for it is rather extreme. But thank God we're out of this one, and now proceeding with the rest of the level. A very, very intense climb segment is what we've just gone through, but what's coming here is nothing short of spectacular. We see Tiberius in the background, but he's running away, which is expected of any final boss. What this is the Leviathan Chase segment. And the word chase is there for a reason. You are in fact chasing him. So get this, you're speedrunning a segment while engaging in combat with the mid-boss, as I would call it. He throws projectiles, enemies are present, and you have to keep the pace going. You can't slow down, otherwise Leviathan is well equipped to punish you for it. The action doesn't stop. You run fire at everything, fire in the background. The floor collapses because it's on fire. Leviathan himself fires at you. You can see smoke because of the fire. And these soldiers probably got fired if they survived after the stage was over. There's fire everywhere for everyone. Ignoring the weapon available, and look at that. Leviathan grabbed himself a little hostage person, hoping it would work as a shield. But of course not. We quickly defeat this phase and enter the actual boss fight, which is one of my favorites. It's the Knight mech suit again, but this time a very aggressive version of that fight. He brings out the sword just as you would expect, in a very cool fashion, and immediately unleashes his attacks onto you. He wastes no time. 1, 2, 3, jump, 4, and then he goes again. The best thing you can hope for without a weapon is to benefit from the Leviathan grenades. His ability to spam the grenades rather relentlessly. There's no limited ammo on the grenades, and you can kind of go crazy about it as long as you understand the distance and the range of those grenades and how to operate them. Can you imagine working for Tiberius and having to go up these stairs every day for work? That's gotta be miserable. Alright, so as per true final boss fashion, Tiberius leaves, and we are left with, well, see for yourselves. This isn't what you're thinking, I promise. Cerberus, a reference to one of the bosses from Contra Hardcore. Very grindy, very tanky, another damage sponge, but he can be dealt with very, very comfortably overall. We see here the spread gun. If many of their bullets do in fact hit Cerberus, he can be dealt with rather quickly. The option to spam the grenades on him is also available, but the consistency of the spread gun makes this much more, I would say, comfortable and accessible both for the player and for the Leviathan character himself. Cerberus goes down. We have an amazing red moon in the background. As per Hollywood fashion, we leave on a missile, and then we're preparing ourselves for the final level of the game called the Battleship.
True warrior.
Stage 8 easily, and I do mean easily, qualified as not only the most chaotic stage of this game, but one of the most chaotic stages in the entire Contra franchise. You begin the stage at a very nice pace with this motorcycle segment, and things quickly, and I mean quickly, get out of hand. I won't spoil it just yet. I'll wait for it to really show on screen, but what you're seeing right now is nothing. The missiles coming from the background and the laser are a prelude to what you're supposed to expect for the rest of, I would say, the first half of the level, and that's a very reasonable claim. We're now going to be doing more cool action film stuff, and the ominous battleships in the background are there for a reason. They are relevant to the situation. Game on. Now, if you look at this, the stage is very crowded. There's enemies in there with umbrellas that don't belong there and probably just fell from the roof of stage 7 or something. The battleship itself is a threat, given the fact that it can shoot missiles and even the laser. If you make it fast enough, you don't have to worry about it. Now we have a Metal Shark player type segment. The roof, the ceiling itself, is trying to kill you, and is trying to control the pace of how fast you will go throughout the level. A very interesting variety of strats are available, especially for Leviathan, considering his speed and his ability to squeeze right through in certain opportunities and to make his way even with and without a weapon. A very brave strat of going under the level in order to make it faster. That was very brave, and it worked, so the reward is there. We're now moving forward with the laser, and something to notice is that the arc of the laser makes it deal increased damage. The laser aims at bosses and enemies automatically. So if you can get the laser to arch and have that arch damage the enemy itself, you're almost dealing what can be considered double damage. In every boss fight, and especially in this stage, this is extremely important and needs to be mentioned very, very precisely. This segment right here requires not only good mobility, precision, but also an understanding of your weaponry and how to optimize it. Very soon, the boss will take away its kindness in how many opportunities it's willing to give the player to damage it, and you have to optimize said damage at every opportunity. This giant ball in the background making its way onto here is called the Vitus engine, and every single time it is hurt, it changes direction. We've seen just now the arc of the laser being utilized, given the fact that it was chasing the boss into the background. I did not even have time to point out when we made it halfway through the level. We are already at the final section, this one gap before we reach Tiberius, and things are going to get very interesting. This is a fight that has to go by as quickly as possible because it has nothing but the ability to get messy. Tiberius is a boss with increased mobility in his first phase, and you don't want him to start moving on the screen because problems will occur. If you deal enough damage, you're able to stun him, preventing him from dashing left and right, up and down into the arena. With the first phase gone, we're now... I won't say it. Just take a look. And now for someone you would not want at your Christmas party, Tiberius Augustus, which is a very, very transformed and... I don't even know how to describe this. He belongs in a horror movie, and he would make a lot of money if he worked in there. He has a lot of projectiles and takes a lot of space on the screen. He can also summon little clones of himself, which will attempt to grab the player and immobilize them. Thank God on Rising mode, most of his attacks and behaviors have no time to become a problem. And with this, we enter the final boss of the game, Tiberius's third form, and one of the most grief-inducing segments of the entire game. Oh yeah, don't worry, the trusty helicopter is always there for you in Contra. And now we're ready. Tiberius Invictus, his final form. This is a very unique battle. You're in the sky falling down. Don't get reminiscent of Mega Man 04. This is very different. The debris is falling, and you as the player constantly have to adjust yourself to it. If you destroy the ones you were supposed to rely on, you will lose one life, you will lose your weapon, but don't worry, you can reacquire them by destroying the falling debris. The real danger here is to ruin the one path you had that would have allowed you to climb up and stay alive. Now that Tiberius Invictus is down, we have only one thing left to do, which is to escape this place by grabbing onto our trusty helicopter. Which I want to mention, if you're doing the no death trophy for this game, even if you kill the final boss, if you fail to grab the helicopter, you still fail the achievement. I know because it happened to me, and it happened to Anti-Aaron as well. It must have happened to everyone. It's like a rite of passage. We grab onto the helicopter and we say, "Congratulations, Anti-Aaron. The first run of this ballet is complete. GG." All right, now going into the second run, we are accompanied by a new variety of tracks, adding a whole new flavor to the experience. All right, so as you can see, we're using a different character this time. And this is going to make a huge difference, even if the levels are the same. This character is Harley Daniels, and he is one of the least popular characters, I would say, in casual play. He himself is a run-and-gun character to the core, and he has the most limited mobility out of the entire game. His ability to jump is nothing out of the ordinary. You have the double jump, and he also has the dash ability in midair, like the other characters. However, his dash is, I'll say it kindly, quite pathetic if you compare it to other characters. It's mostly used to allow you to remain in midair for a longer period of time, but it is not a big game changer like it is with Leviathan's dash, which gives you not only great mobility, but also a big boost and increase in speed. Playing as Harley Daniels is masochistic in nature and is a way to increase the difficulty of the game. It increases the challenge by a huge margin and starts you up with an incredibly powerful arsenal right from the get-go. Harley Daniels is pure firepower right from the beginning, and takes the entire increase of difficulty on the game on his own shoulders. And now we're going to be facing the stage 1 mini-boss again, or the second mini-boss, and we're going to rely on our insane firepower to get through this, which is going to be even more ridiculous than it was with Leviathan. True, Leviathan has grenades, but Harley is a powerhouse. Burned to a crisp. Also, canonically, Harley also loves motorcycles, so these segments I always associate being on a motorcycle with Harley when I played this game. Sorry. Our ability to dish out incredible damage makes a glorious return, as this boss is also turned into, well, it's comparable to a regular enemy at this point. And we jump onto the helicopter to end the scene. So with this, a very good introduction to Harley Daniels and a good explanation of what to expect for the rest of the game. Very high firepower, but extremely reduced mobility even in rising mode. So this will prove to be interesting. So, as you may remember from the previous run, this level is about going fast and going non-stop towards the right. But the twist this time is that you're playing as Harley. Your movement is impaired. Things have changed. You don't go as fast in your sprinting. You don't have the same ability to dodge by including an air dash into your maneuvers, and the only real thing you can rely on is the absolutely insane firepower. You have to dodge more manually this time, considering the fact that even if you do a dodge using the dodge button, you may not benefit fully from it because of the, I don't want to say the physics, but because of the way Harley's air dash is not as reliable as the other characters. In such a case, it's better to just do it yourself and plow your way through rather than rely on the fact that you could do a dodge maneuver using the dodge button and then air dash out of it. It reduces the risks and positions Harley much better for whatever is ahead of him. Alright, so the mini-boss has been absolutely annihilated, and we proceed through the rest of it with Harley going guns blazing as expected. Sorry. The alligator segment and the fish are still a big problem regardless of who you play as, but it's quite as terrifying with Harley, because if you do get caught by the fish, not only are you punished for it, you're most likely to die, and regaining your momentum after that is very difficult because the enemies will have repositioned themselves and they will have prepared for whatever maneuver you'll be trying next. Now we get to fight Leviathan in his Knight Forsica mech suit, and once again, as per tradition, guns blazing, power all out. Leviathan is a bit trickier in here because due to Harley's lowered mobility and sprint speed, he is given the he is given the time to start moving around, which is something he would have the benefit of doing if it were, as we've seen, against Leviathan himself, or a character such as Sayuri, which we will be seeing later in this run. Stage 3 as Harley has a very, very tight windows of opportunity. We don't have the benefit of screwing up in our positioning or in our movement. Every movement that we're going to execute, every maneuver has to be done with very high precision and has to be executed accordingly as per whatever planning you have for each segment. There is very, very little margin for error in a segment like this. And when I say segment, I do mean the entirety of Stage 3, which is a segment of the game. This boss fight here won't be too different from how it was with Leviathan. You're still restricted to a small corridor, and it's about shooting all the firepower on the left side right onto the boss. Considering how fast the boss dies, this is a battle of firepower and not as much a battle of attrition, where you would try to outlast the boss or try to take enough hits so that he dies before you do. No thanks to Harley's mobility here, the rock is actually very threatening. A single mistake will cause it to catch up with you, and well, in co-op, that stress really, really shows up. Very limited movement makes this a tricky climb, made easy here by Anti-Aaron, and we continue. There is an upper path available right here where you can squeeze just enough to make it through, but it's not a safe path, and by doing it, especially with Harley, you are risking your weapon, which will be necessary for the boss, or at least get you through the spike ceiling segment. The rest of the level is very spacious, but the boss has a lot of HP, and you want to hopefully keep your best arsenal for it. Unlike Contra 1, this time we're going down the waterfall. Okay, so now this time we're... Wait, he looks familiar. Nah, it can't be the same. This one is... 573 Draconus, which looks like a water version of the 573 Tigress. 573 is a returning number in this game, as in Rising mode, you can have 573 continues, a very present number. Now, for this battle, if you kill him fast enough, you will have the benefit of no second phase. But if you do take damage or fall down, this benefit will be completely gone. Now, from what we've seen here, Aaron has killed his character on purpose, and the reason for that is because of a strat where instead of wasting time to jump on the helicopter, dying spawns you immediately on it and gets you to complete the level on the very first available frame for it. Now we're going to be entering stage 4 again, but the lack of mobility is still there. Something that was a pleasure cruise last time now has a twist in it, and it changes a lot of things. So this should be interesting. And remember that there are crashing cars in this segment. Those things are completely influenced by your movement. So this redefines your approach as a player to how you're going to handle the stage. Thank God for the firepower, because otherwise this would be completely miserable. So for this segment, due to the more restricted movement, I'll be giving Aaron the necessary headspace to focus, as this is a stage that really speaks for itself, especially after you've had it explained once. It mostly consists of looking at the footage and just observing how different it is with Harley, and how this lack of mobility really impacts the execution of the level. In Rising mode and on a speedrun, it may not be as visible, but it can still be observed right here. Firepower completely demolished this boss. Laser in this stage is your best friend because it means that you don't have to move closer to the enemies on each side in order to protect yourself and get ready for the segment that's coming soon. Those police cars you can't do anything about. Sorry, Aaron, it's just part of the game. Alright, so still going savage with the left, right lasers, clearing the space on the screen as much as possible. Which is the preferred method, because once these police cars show up, the last thing you want on it is to have a bunch of enemies jumping about, shooting projectiles, while the police cars are already a threat that can kill you. Or at least rob you of your weapon or one of your weapons, which is something you don't want in a stage that is cramped like this. Don't worry, I'm sure the police force has insurance. I really hope they have insurance. Yeah, they better at this rate. No, they definitely do, yeah. You know, I can't wait to live in the future where cars can run on the ceiling. That's pretty cool. So just as with last run, he killed the enemy so fast that he gets a breather, where the game realizes that there's no more enemies left to spawn, but loads the next section in the meantime. So normally this kind of loading is done while the player is busy. But here, due to killing the enemy so fast, we are thrown directly into the loading zone to access the rest of the level. Okay, they better have insurance for that collision, because that was insane. Now we're moving forward, without insurance that is, and getting ready for the actual boss of the level. The option to... the mid-boss, sorry, of the level. The option to stay close and abuse the arc of the laser is available to us thanks to keeping it for so long. And when the time is right, we pull out the heated plasma and simply, you know, go all out on the boss. We protect ourselves using the heated plasma, given the fact that it has the larger hitbox between the laser and the heated plasma. It practically guarantees your safety, while as the lasers, even if very useful, might not be 100% reliable for this. And it is a very important weapon to have for the end boss of the stage, which is next on the list. The game shows us a bit of mercy and lets us get some preparations for the boss fight. There is a spread gun, if I remember well, and some health pack that is available as, I don't want to say generous drops because you can miss them, but you're still given a chance to collect them. Now, this boss with the laser is turned into a joke. The arc of the laser is very, very easy to pull off. And you're given more than enough space for you to play with. So all you really have to do is focus on... well, you barely have to focus on the weak spot because the laser is going to grab him for you. Focus on your positioning, make sure you're not taking any damage, and let the laser do its thing. The arc of it happens most naturally. And in worst case scenario, if it does fall, then you're going to have the heated plasma as backup. The laser usually completely demolishes this boss fight with very little effort, and the heated plasma is the backup everyone needs as a best friend when playing this. The first phase of this boss, the first phase of the second form, I should say, is done. So is the second one. If we destroy it soon enough, it won't get to shoot its laser, which it didn't, thanks to the godly firepower. And now we enter the desperation phase. That one, you absolutely have to create whatever distance you can, parry what you can, and let the laser do its job. This boss collapses, and we get ready for the stage 5, which features, in this case, absolutely no stealth.
And I just want to tell you that we have some micro status that also happens on site. They will look at it after the event. Sorry about that.
Okay, great. Okay, so as mentioned last run, this normally would be a stealth segment, but who cares? Firepower makes it unnecessary, so we just have to keep moving forward and fire everything we've got, and just follow the rather linear path that this stage has for us. The amount of enemies is quite fair, and you don't have to worry about their positions too much because it follows a very natural train of thought. Now, remember that Harley has reduced mobility. What this means is that this segment right here is even crueler towards him, because if one single thing goes wrong, the entire segment becomes nearly irrecuperable. You can't recuperate it, okay? The flow, the enemy timing, the enemy positions, the enemy, like their stance to attack or their timing is completely switched. And it's just, thank God it didn't happen. When you play as Harley for that segment, it better go right, because it shows absolutely no forgiveness to the player at all. Door opens up and we enter the furnace. Now, again, reduced mobility in an area where you can fall to your death, and there are enemy flies that do grab and carry you. And also the conveyor belts push against you most of the time. And it's also flooded with enemies. This segment is a lot harder than it looks. But thankfully, we made it through. Laboratory segment. These capsules will spawn enemies if you open them up, or if you're too slow, they can sometimes open up on their own, depending on where you are. Geomandrake, who we did not miss. I don't have much to say about this guy. He's definitely, well, he moves to the right, and sometimes to the left, if he feels like it. He has a few voice lines, which I don't know how much the actor was paid for. He takes damage, which is pretty funny. And he never runs fast enough, but his running animation is pretty... It's, well, I don't need to talk about him any longer. He's gone. Sorry, guys. He's gone. All right. So, this Rubik's Cube baby with the arms on each side. This fight is what you would expect it to be, considering how the last run with Leviathan demonstrated the effective use of firepower. Here you just have to go crazy with the heated plasma. If you don't have the heated plasma, the laser is a very, very effective alternative. Looks like I jinxed it. Hey Aaron, no hard feeling on this one. So the laser can actually be faster in some cases, because you don't need to bother with movement, and you can focus on dodging without needing to be concerned about getting closer to the boss so that your shots hit him. We solve the strange Rubik's Cube, boss falls to the ground, and we get ready for stage 6, which is the train level. Sorry, Aaron, got nothing for Geo. All right. So, firepower actually makes this stage quite comfortable for Harley, even if it is rather cramped near the end and very threatening. The lack of mobility here is less of a concern because of how much you're able to push away the enemies and destroy them thanks to your firepower. This applies to helicopters, this applies to mini-bosses, the more resistant enemies, the enemies that are airborne. So the threat is still existent, but it's reduced because you are still in a position where you can focus on unleashing your damage rather than worrying about how you're going to position yourself in order to continue your combo. Harley is the combo. He is the powerhouse. While Leviathan has mobility, during a run you're focused on using said mobility in order to dish out maximum damage. Harley works differently. You sit back, and focus on how you're going to unleash that damage rather than moving Harley himself, because moving Harley around is a bigger task than manipulating your firepower to let it do the movement and the damage. Leviathan sacrifices absolutely nothing in that department, while Harley requires most of the time, very strict positioning. But this is seen later on in the game rather than, I would say this part of the game is the beginning of such a thing. And stage 7 and 8 are really going to be insistent on things like that. As for stage 6, you're still relatively comfortable and get to abuse your firepower. So just like last time, the top wagons, and we're going to be having this segment right here where you've got top and bottom with enemies spawning up and down. Again, this is about screen management. You can hide underneath the wagon by holding onto the pipe and let the laser do the screen management for you. This does not apply to all characters, but we're going to be seeing that later. For now, we're having Harley and his amazing firepower, which will be used to unleash hell onto the upcoming mid-boss. So as mentioned earlier, the laser does make this level very comfortable for the most part. The only disadvantage to it is the fact that the laser is going to aim to enemies normally one at a time. So the one you want to shoot at might not be the one targeted by the laser, and this could screw up all your plans for either the level and sometimes the boss fight itself. Again, this has been a segment of segment transition and loading the boss. And, well, honestly, this segment speaks for itself. Firepower, insane damage, gets the work done. I'm trying so hard not to make a Transformers joke. All right, so with the Transformer being out of the way, we're given a chance to collect an additional weapon, and we immediately enter the boss fight, or the last boss fight of this level. Alright, so this boss right here is one of the most dangerous bosses in the game. The trick here is to not give it the time it needs to become dangerous. The machine gun is very useful, but the laser can get the work done very, very quickly in a matter of seconds. Here's the hoping you don't lose the laser and manage to dodge the wagon destructions, which is a success. So with this, we'll soon be entering stage 7 with a bang and seeing how the cruel lack of mobility for Harley completely changes the level. Hell comes from below, and we now enter what is the equivalent of an entire Contra game cramped into one single stage. Harley cannot afford to stop in this segment. Every single step counts, and the movement and the momentum is everything. This is not about killing all the enemies as much as it is breaking yourself a path in order to keep going into the level. The enemies can easily, very easily catch up to you. If it's not the enemies themselves, it's going to be their projectiles, such as the sniper, which will not care about how far away you are on the screen. As long as you are within its reach, it will fire at you with a very decent precision. But hey, elevator segment, take a step, it's done. I expected you to have water, Aaron, come on. There we go. Aren't elevator segments awesome? If you manage not to laugh while the calm elevator music had the death screams going on in the background, you're definitely a lot tougher than I am, because I couldn't control it here. I just couldn't. It was too much. Thank God for mute button. Anyway, continuing throughout the level, we are at one of the most frightening segments. We're doing some sort of Ninja Gaiden climb here, Ninja Gaiden wall climb, because Harley's ability to climb walls manually or the regular way by holding up or down is far from ideal. So we can do the Ninja Gaiden jump and rely on respawning ourselves higher and higher each time to avoid the scripted helicopter segments and make a very successful climb all the way there. The helicopter segments, if they appear, a helicopter will appear and you will absolutely be forced to destroy it. Two of them can spawn. You'll have to destroy them in order to progress. And that can be dangerous to your run in some contexts, and they can also cost you a lot of time, which, given the speedrun setting, is really, really something you want to avoid. So those deaths were not for nothing. They were actually very well timed and executed, and they were successful every time. The damage boost here makes this segment a lot easier than it ever wanted to be. The very smart strategy to skip the absolutely cramped vertical climb, and now we enter, which is one of the most chaotic part of the game, especially for Harley, which, as we've seen earlier, the Leviathan chase. Leviathan is one of the, if not the fastest character in the game. And now you have to chase him down with his incredible speed while he has enemies on stage present to help him attack you, and he has his ever-going grenade projectiles sent your way. Thank God to the arcing laser, we're actually able to create some kind of shield for ourselves, and we actually are able to keep track of Leviathan by sticking to his back. It was difficult not to say that. So we get very close with him and are able to follow him until the later segment of the stage. Now, with Leviathan earlier, we could skip this, but here we have to do it manually. We have to do umbrella platforming. risky if you want to go really fast, and sometimes very easy to screw up because the hitbox for these umbrellas can be very tricky at times. I'm not sure why, they just are. Now we have to deplete Leviathan's life bar in order to enter the Night Lunata boss fight, which is the game's second and last Leviathan boss fight. Firepower versus an insane barrage. A very, very, very quick battle. Alright, Cerberus. Harley is one of the most adequate characters for this boss fight because of his firepower and the fact that this boss is incredibly slow and is a big tanky damage sponge. So you can abuse the laser's arc and the heated plasma's firepower and turn this boss into absolutely nothing in a matter of seconds. Welcome to Hell. This, considering Harley's lack of mobility, is a nightmare to navigate through. Some of the strategies that were available for Leviathan are completely absent this time around. And even though you've got the firepower of a god, the lack of mobility in such a chaotic area is not something you can just... how can I say that? You can't just discard it or dismiss it. No matter how much practice, this becomes a war of attrition on its own. It becomes a fight based on your ability to move forward while understanding your environment and to know how to dodge certain situations and projectiles accordingly. This stage will tolerate absolutely no failures from the player, and we're still at the early parts of it. Once we reach this Crusher segment, where the battleship is on top of this current battleship and trying to crush the player, is where it gets all sorts of ugly. For the time being, you follow a very strict path and use the laser and heated plasma at the appropriate time to clear yourself a path by destroying what is the majority of the enemies available. The majority of the enemies on screen. Now, as you've seen here, when doing this segment with Harley, you have absolutely no time to lose. You want to make it as far as you can and get ready for the opening without taking any damage or being delayed, because this will cause either an additional cycle or a 0.5 of a cycle, because it will delay you by several seconds no matter what happens. Another character would be able to keep up, but not Harley, unfortunately. Though as we've seen, Aaron had to take the upper path, and he still managed to get through successfully. It was a bit of a roundabout, but executed properly, it's all fine. Alright, back to Vitus Engine. We still want to destroy the eyeballs and then the power poles, which come up from the ceiling and the floor. We want to be able to position ourselves impeccably on the ceiling and just have to focus on damaging the Vitus Engine itself. The power poles can become a problem because they can push you off of the ceiling by taking you too far on either side of the screen, or sometimes, depending on the angle, can also damage you. Less than ideal if you don't have increased mobility, but with the firepower you can spare yourself that problem by destroying them as soon as they become damageable. This boss can go ridiculously fast, and we've seen very good use of the arc of the laser for this. This segment is a lot more difficult with Harley because the danger is actually felt here. And then we enter the Tiberius fight, where the strategy mostly remains the same. You want to stun him and break him. Very good. Excellent timing too. Now, for such a boss, thank God for the firepower. The lack of mobility makes little to no difference in such a scenario. And what we really want out of this is the ability to deplete his life bar as soon as we can, which, fortunately for us, is Harley's specialty. Well, this is nothing more than target practice, and now we enter the final boss. Tiberius Invictus, one of the most dangerous battles for Harley in the entire game. Mobility here is almost everything, including grabbing onto the helicopter at the very end. So even if you had a good boss fight, overall you can still get screwed over by, well, this, exactly. The big Falcon Punch, which destroys most of what's on screen. Very unforgiving and can be incredibly punishing for a Harley player because it's all about being able to predict when it's about to be done and having the time to react before it's even prepared by the boss. So there's a sense of paranoia that you always have to be ready to go near the top of the screen on either side, or else you'll be sunk to the very bottom and lose a life. And by losing a life, a weapon, which you may or may not be able to recover by destroying debris. Grab onto the helicopter and another GG. All right. Next, we'll be switching character. This time, we're going to be running with Crystal, which is the speed default character from the game. Some of the characters are DLC. Crystal is standard along with Bahamut in this game. And she is the faster of the two, kind of reminiscent of Sheena from Contra Hardcore on the Sega Genesis. Along with Leviathan, Crystal brings an incredible amount of speed to the gameplay. So when doing co-op, if there is a Sayuri or Leviathan and a Crystal, the flow is very, very active and constant because the characters are equipped enough to keep up with one another. Crystal's defaults are very different from Leviathan or Harley. Crystal is also able to equip two different weapons at the same time, or sometimes they can be the same, but she has two weapon slots, unlike Leviathan. Her focus on speed rather than firepower gives her a lot of new options. She's often seen using alternate routes, such as the upper floors or upper routes, in order to dodge some of the obstacles. And she's also very, very capable of using the dodge button followed by an air dash, which is something Harley does not really get to benefit from in a playthrough. Even on Rising mode, Crystal has full access to it relentlessly, and it has a very beautiful flow throughout the entire game. Reduced firepower is not going to stop Crystal. The mobility prevents this boss from being a problem, and she would be able to catch up with anything it does, such as readjusting herself very quickly to be in proper position to use the combo damage to, well, completely destroy it, as we've seen. Alright, this concludes the bosses for Stage 1, and we're about to hop onto the helicopter to end the scene. Entering Stage 2 very soon, I can't help but feel that this stage was made for Crystal. The flow of it, the accessibility to dodge, the obstacles, their positioning, the ability to, I would say, air dash your way through certain segments definitely makes it adequate for the character, and that's going to be on display in just a few moments. Alright, very good first mini-boss. Definitely broke through that door. The rest of the level consists on berating everything and dodging while moving as fast as you can to the right, which is Crystal's specialty. That was a triple jump, incredible mobility, very good usage of the double air dash, entering the next segment with a laser and heated plasma, blasting your way through, completely ignoring the flower's projectiles or the directional seeds and reaching in a matter of seconds the secondary mid boss for this level. The secondary mid boss. The secondary mini boss. There we go. English. Completely annihilated it, and now moving forward. More guns blazing, more moving to the right, a completely different flow from what it was with Harley. The danger of the fish and the alligator is almost non-existent. You've got a triple jump and double air dash. You're almost floating through certain segments of the game as Crystal, which is really, really something fun. Alright, the strategy stays the same. Just blast him, hope that he dies in your very first barrage. And, ooh, that was close. And then we proceed to stage 3. I saw your heart skip a beat there, Aaron. I saw it. And then we proceed to stage number 3, the Ruin. Alright, preparing for stage 3, sweaty hands, all good. Alright, very fitting song for this stage. Gives an already awesome vibe. And really gives it a whole new interpretation. Very interesting considering what we had with Harley and Leviathan previously. This has a lot more adventurous feel to it, which does suit Crystal's personality. Awesome. So now we've got the proper position and the firepower. Boss didn't get to do anything. As always, it destroys a part of the roof and nothing else. Indiana Jones segment and everything is fine. And Crystal's ponytail waving behind her as she runs is a very beautiful thing. A very good execution of the upper path with the jumping and the air dashes to propel you forward. A bunch of little enemies falling from the ceiling, but they are very, very quickly dealt with thanks to the laser's auto-aim and arcing. .573 Dragoness, which is probably the amount of times Anti-Aaron fights him in one day. Again, same strategy. You want to deplete that boss's health bar as quick as you can to then do the strategy that allows you to spawn faster on the helicopter. But the risk here is to accidentally enable his second phase by not destroying him fast enough. So you really want to give it your best ammo, and there we go, success. Fall down and hope to spawn onto the helicopter. First frame available, you complete the stage. The strat completely successful. You tried to do it earlier with Harley, but here we have it demonstrated. A successful end to stage 3. Using the strat, I mean. Okay, so a very action-packed stage, and this time done with one of the highest mobility characters in the entire game. So not only can you manage the enemies on screen, but you can fly through the entire thing. Let me remind you that Crystal has a triple jump and 2 fast air dashes. This turns this entire stage into a funhouse. Here's the hoping they did buy insurance. A mid-boss that is almost non-existent, at least on Rising. Alright, nice dodging, just moving under, didn't even bother ducking or sliding under, just went for it. Very good positioning, got rid of the car, ready for whatever's next, and the game is loading the screen transition to the next segment. Wonderful, and now we've entered the tunnel section, which is where the police car's gimmick is more serious, and they're a lot more aggressive in their approach by using the electric lasers and positioning themselves in more, I guess, unified or cooperative formation, such as this one. Destroying the top car is always the priority, and this liberates a lot of the screen for you afterwards to do some enemy management. The 2 cars that are joined by an electric pole, or electric beam, sorry, are not really a threat compared to, well, anything else on that screen. they're an obstacle, but not an active threat. As long as you know to stay far from them, they don't have much ability to chase you down. Alright, nice. So survive the debris. Now we just have to duck under the boss or jump completely above it. And we proceed to the final half or the last third of the level. I think we're past half. I really think it's just a third. Again, so we are well equipped. We don't need to bother too much about acquiring the proper weapon or the health pack. Or I think the previous weapon in the capsule would have been a thread. Not something we need here. Okay, so thank God we have the laser. We don't need to be too up close and personal with this boss. We can stay a reasonable distance and be reasonably comfortable with our shots. We just have to worry about positioning and dodging his physical mass. And the rest of the fight goes pretty smoothly. He didn't get to fire his giant laser. And the final or the remaining tidbit of his HP is almost fully depleted. Stage 4 is done, and we will soon be entering Stage 5. Okay, so Stage 5, Stage 5, sorry, is a very different experience when done with Crystal compared to Harley and Leviathan. It's very different from Leviathan due to the usage of 2 weapons rather than 1, and still a very decent speed, and different from Harley due to the mobility. He also has 2 weapon slots, but Crystal is a lot faster than he is, has triple jump and the double air dash. As you can see, this segment was completely breezed through with no damage, and we already reached the mini-boss, which will also be a matter of seconds to deal with. There we go, enemy down, and we are entering the furnace, which is a much more reasonable segment to go through with Crystal than with Harley. You get to keep a very constant and active flow. The barrage of enemies is less of a problem. The conveyor belts, which normally push against you, are pretty much negated due to the fact that Crystal's sprint speed is very high, and you are done very quickly with this segment. You enter the capsule area of the laboratory, and oh yeah, Geo. He certainly is a character. He appeared in a few Contra games. Yeah. In this game, he moves left and right, and up and down. He wears a lab coat. He has a daughter. I think he celebrates Christmas sometimes. He seems like a pretty cool dude from time to time, but we have to escort him. That's the problem. Nobody wants to do it. But hey, he's gone now, so we're fine. We're fine. Moving on. You guys surely remember the Rubik's Cube with a baby in it. So we're back to this guy, and we will be experiencing this battle with increased speed, since this is with Crystal. And, well, it's got a beautiful flow, and it's going to speak for itself very shortly. Alright, destroyed the arms very quickly. Now simply berate the enemy with fire. Matter of seconds, and he is down. We're now ready to enter stage number 6. With those amazing train sections. All right. So the music suggests that this is indeed going to be a fun little cruise, and thanks to Crystal's agility, it kind of is. Firepower is not as needed here, since you can move around like... I don't even know what to compare it to, but you have good mobility, and the lack of firepower compared to Harley is replaced with your ability to get up close to the enemies in order to damage them very, very quickly, because Crystal can cover up a lot of terrain in a matter of seconds thanks to her ground speed and the double air dash. I gotta point out that it's very interesting how the bell rang at the same time the train arrived. That was pretty cool. Alright, so the screen management is a lot easier. I would say, given the laser and Crystal's ability to navigate from left to right in a matter of seconds, which means from the right side of the screen all the way to the middle, if need be. You don't need to cover the entire terrain to hit the enemies most of the time, so you have a bit more freedom in terms of your timing to destroy the enemy. That was really good. Very nice boss execution. It didn't get to do a single action other than dying. All right, the ever-returning Transformers boss, and I have to say, considering Crystal's movement, this boss is absolutely no danger at all. There is nothing that he can do that you don't have the arsenal to adjust yourself to. So either it be by firing something from afar or benefiting from your movement to get really up close to damage him very, very, very much. Crystal benefits in all scenarios for this fight, so this one is a matter of seconds and it's gone off. This boss is also much more accessible when you consider that Crystal can navigate left or right very easily in midair. So if he destroys an entire wagon, either it be on the left or the right side of the screen, you can very, very easily recover by latching onto the other one by diving onto the other side. Harley earlier did not have such a benefit. The majority of the characters can, but Crystal is one of the luckier ones in this game when it comes to scenarios like these. Alright, back into the most action-packed stage, and a very, very beautiful segment where Crystal is more than well equipped to get through thanks to her speed. The entire stage actually has a very nice flow thanks to her, and whether it be the climbing segment or the and when I say climbing segment, I really mean those rooms with the electric fences on each side. Whether it be those or the horizontal climb that we're doing right now, she is well equipped to make her way through those without facing too many problems, as long as you focus on the elevator music. You can hug your loved ones if this song makes you feel romantic. Alright, so here we're benefiting from multiple jumps to completely skip this segment, and very comfortably so. We're already making our way to the left exit, from which we're climbing the building from the exterior. And here's to remembering the helicopter skip from before, in which you let yourself fall down on purpose in order to respawn to the appropriate height that allows you to skip that segment. Or at least that scripted encounter. Alright, that was great. We completed the majority of the climb here. We have this other segment where the electric fences are not as effective as the previous ones, and the climb becomes a bit more strategic, in which you can damage boost yourself and use your iframes in order to skip most of the enemies and most of the segment. And then we enter the Leviathan chase encounter, which Crystal is more than well equipped to handle. Excellent entry into the Leviathan chase, and now it's about keeping up the pace and damaging his health bar and making it to the end, hopefully with as much synchronization as possible with the character himself. Alright, very good. The umbrella segment is not as much of a threat or a problem this time around because we're playing as Crystal. It barely exists. Knight Lunata, as soon as he appears on the screen, it's already over. A much more comfortable and easier fight with Crystal than Harley. Despite the firepower, I would say different. Alright, while this may be a slow fight, none of it is actually threatening due to the ability to either dodge everything or easily adjust ourselves to follow him on screen if it comes to that. But obviously it didn't, so we now prepare ourselves for entering the most chaotic level, Stage 8. All right. So for Crystal, this is going to be much more comfortable than the previous adventure we had in this stage. Obviously, due to the movement, this means that we will practically float through certain segments thanks to the triple jump and the double air dash. Everything is less of a threat because we're able to manage what's on screen a lot easier, and the weapons are as useful as ever, but they are, I guess I would say, more effective because we're able to approach certain enemies and damage them very, very up close. For example, the laser. Impeccable movement, floated through this entire segment. Great execution. That's what I was referencing when I said floating over certain segments. Crystal has excellent movement. A very, very eloquent performance to showcase Crystal's maneuverability and movement. This was spectacular. Even went for the risky strats. Just like with Leviathan, it's easier than ever before to destroy the eyeballs and the power poles and to comfortably adjust ourselves as close as we can to the center of the screen in order to maximize our damage output and the combos with it. Great laser arc, great laser utilization, and with the Vitus engine destroyed and the battleship sinking, we are now on our way to Tiberius. Very dramatic music sync. That was very good. All right, backed it up with the laser. First phase complete.
All right, nice. A very, very tense Tiberius second form fight due to the loss of a weapon, but we managed to keep it up and catch back to the rhythm. And now we're entering the third phase. All right, Tiberius Invictus versus a high mobility character. This is going to be a very beautiful fight and very low risk if you compare it to Harley. Very good execution. Now all that's left is to respawn, which he did, and now we have to catch the helicopter at the top. And GG. All right. Next run is going to be played with Bahamut, who is the main protagonist of this game. As you would expect from a main playable character, Bahamut is the balanced character of the game. So he has very good firepower, fire rate, mobility. He does not excel in every single one of them, but he is good at everything overall. So his movement is quite decent compared to the other characters, meaning that he is not faster than anyone besides Harley, but he can still relatively keep up with the speed of the other characters, such as Crystal, Leviathan, and Sayuri, which we haven't seen yet and we will see later. Bahamut also benefits from invulnerability when he jumps. You will notice that he turns blue. That is practically an iframe, a set of iframes that activate upon jumping. They are a passive ability, which means that you do not need to do anything to activate it. It's always available to you, and it helps to compensate for the mobility or speed that you may not have. It also really helps with protecting what weapons you have by making you less vulnerable than other characters in midair. At this time, the characters that are left, we currently have Bahamut, and then after that we have Sayuri at the very end. Sayuri is the absolute destroyer for this game. She is the fastest, most powerful character, and therefore has the shortest run of the bunch. So including Bahamut, that's a total of 2. Bahamut and Sayuri. Excellent. Perfect grip at the end onto the helicopter. Nice timing. Alright, Stage 2 of Bahamut is a very well-balanced experience. You have the proper speed and firepower, overall agility, mobility, and weaponry to make it through. And let's not forget the iframe. Bahamut's running speed makes it a little different than with the other characters to run through, but his double air dash and his iframes and relatively good speed makes this quite a comfortable level or area to run through. It's very adequate, and Bahamut does not feel out of place for it. Alright, so as we saw, the segment with the fish and the alligators posed no problem, thanks to Bahamut's very good mobility. And now we're entering the canonical rival fight of Bahamut versus Leviathan, which is also quite unique given the character selection. Very good execution, very good conclusion to Stage 2. Now entering the ruins. Very good. All right, that was a very, very clean first segment. All the enemies were dealt with accordingly. There was this unfortunate little bump at the very end, but the movement, the climb, the adjustments, the crowd control was very good, and it followed the reasonable pace that you would expect from Bahamut in a speedrun. A very good boss fight, and entrance into the corridor was spot on. Dodge the enemies appropriately, grab the laser, and now into the Indiana Jones boulder segment. Bahamut has the proper mobility to make this very comfortable and make it through without too much worry. As a character, he can tank one hit, or maybe even two, and still make it in time. As we've seen, his iframes during the jump made the giant boulder not a problem, and pretty much nullified any and all threat that it ever posed. So Bahamut can be quite a comfortable all-rounder for practically any level. So Bahamut never feels like a lacking character. He's comfortable in most situations, especially thanks to his iframes and his ability to retain weapons after damage, or after certain types of damage in particular. Usually you'll be well geared up by the time you reach the boss, and the boss fights are less frightening for a character like Bahamut than they will be for another character. All right, awesome. So in certain segments, I do enjoy the music synchronization and transition, which is why I don't talk, because I want to let the show speak for itself. This right here was very clean, entering stage 4. Bahamut's greatest advantage in this stage is the iframes. While it may get clustered for some of the other characters in this game, Bahamut has a lot less to worry about, because if it gets really, really cramped, he actually can escape certain situations thanks to the iframe. And considering that he has multiple jumps available to him, a total of 3, he's able to really, really make it out of certain situations unharmed. So for an upgraded Bahamut, I would say this is one of the least threatening stages in the entire game. An auto-scroller where you have iframes available to you at any moment. Right, very good enemy management using the lasers, similar to what we've just seen with Crystal. So most enemies are destroyed the moment they appear on screen, and there's plenty of space left to deal with the police cars, at least one by one, rather than being submerged in enemies. You're given the proper, I would say, space in order to benefit from your crowd control. All right, very good execution of the tunnel. Excellent musical transition. And now we're exiting the tunnel and we'll be reaching the next mini-boss very, very shortly. The benefit of the arcing laser gun is still going to be, felt in this boss fight, and the protection given to us by the heated plasma is a welcomed addition. So the debris phase is unavoidable, which is why having the heated plasma to protect us and secure the segment is a must. And if you don't have that weapon, a spread gun can also do it for you. Less reliably, but it still can. Alright, now we're in the segment that leads to the stage's final boss, and this is where it offers us a backup gun and a health pack, which we don't need at all given the current circumstances. Alright, so the Beyblade boss fight, where we once again benefit from the arcing laser. And this is the same as all the other times. We aim for the very distinctive weak spots on the core of the boss, so we try to ignore the ones from the external field. Alright, the first phase of the second form is done. The second one is done. On our way to the third. Laser beam prevented. Excellent. And now we're entering the desperation phase. Perfect. Completely destroyed this boss, and now we're on our way to stage 5. All right, so we're entering the very action-packed opening of the level. Making our way through. And we already reached the factory segment, which Bahamut is very well equipped to handle. The conveyor belts pose little to no problems. The iframes are perfect for this place, considering the fact that if you get overwhelmed or grabbed by the giant claw or overwhelmed by the enemy barrage, you can easily boost your way through. And now we're at the eyeball. I have no idea what to refer to this boss as. I think I've seen it as some abstract art before. Maybe I drew it when I was 5 years old. Okay, with this wall down, we enter the furnace. With Bahamut, this is a very appropriate segment. There is no real impairment or disadvantages. Everything is well balanced, and Bahamut as a character is very, very well equipped to navigate this, seen as we skipped the majority of the furnace with our triple jumps and double air dashes. We've had a little bit of a bump from the capsule, but nothing we can't handle or recover from. And now for someone you wouldn't want to invite at your birthday party. I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about Geomandrake. Alright, so the same as before, he is the guy that moves around, present in other Contra games, and relevant to the plot, believe it or not. His segment, unfortunately, never changes. It's the same as all the other times, so I don't have anything original left to say. So we're facing a bit of a different scenario in which the weaponry that we have is the spread gun. So it's going to be a bit of an improvised situation, but we're still going to push our way through. The spread gun is not the expected weapon here, but it has, as the name implies, a very good reach because it spreads its bullets throughout the screen. So we're able to combine that damage by being physically close to the boss and still dealing massive damage if we handle the distance and positioning appropriately. Because if you combine the damage from all those bullets together, it is quite terrific against bosses. Especially when targeting both like that, that's very good. But it's also very risky. The spread gun is only really useful against bosses if you're able to close the distance and combine your bullets together. Otherwise, you might want to rely on basically anything but the spread gun, even the default machine gun as anti-Aaron used right here. So there are some scenarios where the default gun is actually better than the spread gun. The spread gun is a huge benefit when you want to wipe out a screen and don't have the laser for it. It's a decent alternative, but it's not the preferred one. All right, so this stage is pretty on rails. I'm sorry, I've been trying to resist the urge to make that bad joke since the very first run, so, you know, show mercy. Aaron, I've been trying so hard not to make this joke. Anyway, here we go. So this stage with Bahamut is actually no problem at all for the most part. You are very, very well equipped to handle the barrage of enemies, especially when you have a spread gun like this, which covers, I would say in most cases, the entirety of the screen. You are more than well equipped to handle the fire poles or fire flamethrowers, I don't know what else to call them, by abusing your iframes. The agility that your character has is sufficient to get through this, but the mere fact that you can exploit your iframes to make it through normally unharmed shows just how effective the triple jump, or simply the ability for air iframes, can be in a stage like this. So, contrary to other characters, when you play this level, you actually have less to worry about. And it's not just a matter of firepower or rapidity, speed. It's actually a matter of how you can position yourself and exploit the fact that, in a way, you are invincible to their damage. You have very, very little to fear when it comes to this with Bahamut. And you actually can allow yourself a big margin for error compared to some characters like Leviathan or even Harley. And Harley had a very, very small margin for error in a stage like this. Auto-scrollers are practically the enemy for Harley in arcade mode. Even though this is rising, I still think it's worth mentioning. Right, so a very dramatic transition. Very, very good enemy or crowd control, enemy management on screen. Everything is already wiped out, and all the screen had to do was load the boss fight, which is now happening. And Aaron is already prepared with the laser. The boss won't have time to do a single thing. It despawns the moment it's done spawning, and the fight is done. Alright, now for the ever-returning Transformers fight. Very good positioning, then very good movement, brought it maximum damage to the boss while moving backwards, brought it back forward, finished the boss. Perfect. A very, very small segment before the actual boss fight, final boss fight for the level. This tiny stretch is for two things: loading the boss fight and providing the player with at least one backup weapon in case they lost it against the Transformer boss fight. Okay, so I would say that out of the gun users, Bahamut has it best here. His iframes completely negate any and all of the threats from the boss, because he can literally just jump upwards to get closer to the boss, or to the left or the right to dodge whatever is being thrown at him. So all he has to do in this fight is just stick to a wall, mostly, and fire his laser to destroy the boss, which, as we've seen, has been done here. So now we just have to prepare ourselves to emerge into the next level. Go in with a bang.
A true warrior.
Where is he?
All right. So while Bahamut may not be the fastest character, he is still perfectly adequate for this level. He has the proper speed to make it through, the proper default arsenal for rising. He has the proper mobility and even when clinging to the ceiling. He has the iframes, the triple jump, and the double air dash. So Bahamut is, as an all-rounder, is perfect for such a stage, given the fact that it's action-packed, that it's pretty crowded, and that it requires quite decent firepower. So Bahamut is completely at home in a stage like this. And an elevator. Consider drinking if you need it. Take time to reflect upon your feelings. Pet your dog if you have one. Embrace your dreams. I swear, every single one of these elevator musics just go perfectly with the fact that there are death screams happening in the background. It's both poetic and borderline comedic. There's just something about it. Intentional or not, this is peak. Alright, absolute destruction. Now we're climbing with the intent of doing the helicopter skips. We nailed the very first one. Now on to the second one. And again, this is to prevent the helicopter from spawning so that we can skip the scripted battle. Now onto the other elevator. Now this one is very action-packed, so you don't get to pet your dog, drink water, and reflect upon your feelings. That one keeps you busy from beginning to end. Okay, that was an excellent climb, and now we're at the segment where we do require some damage boosting in order to get up, but the twist here is that Bahamut indeed has his iframe jump, which does change a lot of the execution. And then we have the rival battle. Once again, the iframes play a huge role into this climb and brings us very comfortably to Leviathan at the top, we can begin to chase and be in the proper positioning to deal as much damage as we need to. Alright, so Bahamut is well equipped to get through the umbrella section. Just like with Crystal, he doesn't need to worry himself. Even though his dash is not as fast, he still has triple jump and double air dashes, which is more than enough to cover the distance, for the umbrella segment. Alright. Now entering the Night Lunata boss fight room. The fact that it's Bahamut versus Leviathan for this makes it so beautiful. Alright, so that was an excellent boss fight. Went very quickly, and we're already reaching the very top of the stage where we're going to fight. You've seen it a few times already, Cerberus. Alright, so as always, Cerberus is a big damage sponge. He's a big tank. But with the proper equipment, in this case the laser, and the heated plasma, we were able to completely annihilate him and make our way to stage 8. Bahamut is going to provide a very interesting twist on this stage. As dangerous as it gets, the fact that he has the iframes negates a lot of what would destroy a run in this one. This allows him to bypass certain obstacles and enemies, even their projectiles, with very, and I do mean very, minimal risk. Bahamut is actually well balanced for a level like this, and this comes into play later on near the Vitus engine segment. Alright, the main focus here is to plow your way through while exploiting, if necessary, your iframes. You exploit your iframes if you do somehow get slowed down by the enemy barrage, or if you unfortunately take a hit and need to pick up the pace once again, in order to replicate or to catch up with the time that was lost. The crushing segment remains mostly untouched by Bahamut's mobility here. I would say it's pretty similar to the other characters, but that the path itself to get there is made easier thanks to the iframes. This time we go with the top route. Although Bahamut is excellent in balanced character stats such as mobility, firepower, he is not well equipped enough to risk with the lower path. The Vitus engine boss fight is going to resemble a lot of what we've seen so far, except with a lot more freedom. The threat from the eyeballs and the power poles is pretty much negated, as you can just comfortably shoot at the targets and jump if a projectile is coming your way and it's too late to manually dodge it or too risky to deflect. Even if you were to take damage with Bahamut, however, the penalty would be very minimal. With the power poles out of the way, the Vitus engine itself comes into play. Each time it takes damage, it switches direction, which is why you want to deal as much damage as possible on your very first strike against it by abusing the laser's arc, or the arcing laser. With the Vitus engine down, we enter the final segment. Okay, the timing for this, the synchronization was so flawless that I didn't even dare say something. That it was that good. I actually got goosebumps. That was symbolic. Very, very well timed and well executed first phase, and he absolutely demolished phase 2. For the uninitiated, Phase 3 is quite dangerous for the average character. You rely at all times on the falling debris, whether it be the helicopters or the platforms. Those are the only ground you have to stand on. If you destroy your own terrain, you won't be able to keep up with the boss and will die by a design of your own making, which increases the risk if you're playing it co-op. I almost chuckled on that one because I've seen it happen before. And with that, the final and third form of Tiberius is defeated. All that's left is to grab onto the dreaded helicopter at the end. Alright, don't miss the helicopter, Aaron, come on. There we go. GG. All right. Now we're moving on to the final character, my favorite and my specialty. The DLC character, Sayuri. Okay, so I will let the music transition happen and then begin my mouthful about this character. Sayuri is literally the equivalent of a female Strider. She is the fastest, the most powerful character in the game. There is not a single thing in this game that she cannot decimate in a matter of seconds. She is available for both button mashing or simply holding down the attack button with an upgrade, where she will slash at maximum speed for you. She is completely unparalleled in this game. Even Leviathan does not come close in the ability to dish out damage at a completely ridiculous and borderline comedic speed. Sayuri is the one overpowered character that carries it all in rising difficulty. She has the triple jump, she is invulnerable during triple jump, she has the same iframes as Bahamut, and she also has the double dash, all with maximum speed. This boss fight right here is turned to a joke, because nothing can stand against Sayuri. And now for a boss fight that will barely last long enough to commentate on. So I'll just let it happen. Yeah, that's what I meant. So, moving on. I swear there was a boss fight in there. It's Sayuri. You know. Alright, very effective positioning right into the enemy's hitbox for maximal damage output. And there we go, it's already over. Now we jump onto the helicopter to end the scene. A very good, very fast stage 1 as Sayuri. Clean, very good. Okay, so arguably Sayuri is so fast that she may be even too fast for some of the segments of this level. With Sayuri being this fast, there are some segments where you will have to manually slow down because you might bump into certain enemies or actually trigger some attacks that you yourself will bump into. One such thing is definitely not the door boss, because those things are barely tougher than regular enemies. So dashing around at full speed with no consideration about almost, well, anything really. The fish pose little to no problem on rising. The alligator segment is something you can completely float above without needing to think twice. The snipers pose no threat at all because they don't have time to target you appropriately. And the rain is there to make everything more cinematic for you. And now for another mid-boss that will not exist. Alright, so more of breezing through the horizontal, I wanted to say obstacles, but not really. We're already approaching the Leviathan Knight Corsica mech suit battle, and that was another risky jump at the end, well executed, well put. Very brave to have gone for that one. So if you ever thought Knight Corsica went too fast, just watch this. Sayori barely gives him time to do anything. The sword is that good. Boom. Excellent execution, very perfect. Very perfect. Perfect positioning, and very good conclusion to stage 2. Stage 3 turns it all into a playground if you're playing as Sayuri. There is nothing in here that she can't handle. The barrage of enemies or the overcrowded segments are dealt with accordingly by using the sword or ignoring them completely by abusing the no, I can't not use bad words. By abusing the lovely iframes. And then Tigress. This fight is actually a little different for once because you don't have a gun. You have to be relatively close, and while it was the case for most gun users, the fact that you're using a sword is going to give it a different interpretation. And that was demonstrated very well by this one hit that was taken, showing just the lack of breathing room or space that Sayuri can have. The one downside that she has in comparison to the other characters is her close range attacks. However, there's a twist to that, and it's that she can fire a projectile with her sword, which is normally, if you don't have the auto slash upgrade, it's going to be by slashing once and then charging it like in Mega Man Zero. In Rising mode, with a fully upgraded Sayuri, what it does is it charges your beam despite the fact that you are holding down the attack button, which makes it easy to keep a charge for whenever you need it without losing your constant slashes. And there's a waterfall too, so that's pretty cool. I would also like to mention that yes, Sayuri is indeed invulnerable during that fall, because it's the iframes of the jump. Good old 573, that precious number makes its appearance again. Now, Sayuri can decimate any boss in a matter of seconds, but this right here is a perfect example. You just run against it and keep slashing. At some point, a projectile does indeed come your way, but just jumping solves the entire issue. Now for a strat which consists of dying on purpose after defeating the boss to instantly clip onto the helicopter and finishing the stage on the very first frame where it is possible. Okay, so dealing with this stage is actually less comfortable than with a gun user here, because what you're given is a sword and with a one-at-a-time projectile. The way this changes everything is that you have to start chasing down the enemies that you use to effortlessly crowd control, and with Sayuri, it's manageable on Rising thanks to her iframes and high mobility and incredibly powerful damage output. But in arcade, this changes everything. As for here, the challenge is present and very reasonable, so you can still plow your way through without too much stress. However, the absence of a gun is still felt throughout, especially at the boss fight. This makes an enormous difference in positioning and execution throughout the level. Some of the strategies will remain the same, but some other have to be changed entirely because of the lack of range. But this segment speaks mostly for itself. A lot of crowd control or enemy management. You want to wipe out everything that you can so that only the cars are left and that you destroy them, causing the game to immediately load the next segment of the stage as soon as possible, which is happening right now. Very nice demonstration of the iframe. Now continuing with more crowd control and picking up the health back. Keeping the slashes going while always retaining a charge shot ready to be used at all times. Destroying the cars that hopefully have insurance on them, and worrying about nothing else because all the smaller enemies have been destroyed. One thing I completely forgot to mention is that Sayuri does not need to pick up any weapons that are dropped from the capsules. She has her sword and that's all there is to it. The weapons do not apply to her sword and changes nothing to her attacks. Although it would have been cool if they would have applied to her sword-like elements, but she's already a complete terror. She doesn't need more. I saw a comment that said, wait, that's illegal. If you're talking about the police cars having no insurance, you're right. They should get that fixed. Alright, for the Beyblade boss fight, so there are two things you can rely on here. Your ability to, get up close and personal with the boss and utilizing your charge shots optimally, and your parrying skills to deflect these projectiles that are sent your way. On arcade, this is a very, very, very claustrophobic fight, but on Rising, we don't have this problem, so we breeze right through. The close positioning to the boss required because of Sayuri's range, or lack of range, is completely insignificant, since she can, completely demolish whatever phase the boss is in at any given time. So we're entering the desperation phase, which really resembles a bullet hell. We can completely ignore it because it will be over in 1.5 seconds. And with that, we are going to be entering stage 5 really soon. And we also will be exiting it really soon. You are also about to see that Sayuri is not a stealth character.
Mission.
Sound the alarm!
Yeah, sound the alarms all you want. This is not going to stop her. A total and a complete force of nature. Yeah, I wonder what those alarms did for you now. Sayuri is going to completely breeze through this segment. Nothing here stops her. If the giant claw grabs her, she completely destroys it just with her regular attacks. The conveyor belts affect her in practically no way. The enemies all die the moment they come in contact with her sword, and none of the obstacles stand a chance. Neither does the boss, by the way. Give it a head bob. The furnace. Another area of the game which Sayuri completely ignores. There isn't much to say here because the moment I start talking about it, it's already over. Oh yeah, this guy. Look, I ran out of things to say about this guy about 4 runs ago. He has a few voice lines which I hope the person who said them was paid a proper salary. He runs around and he's able to take damage while screaming those weird voice lines that have nothing to do with anything other than whining. He has a nice lab coat, I guess, but he still has the same one years or almost a decade later in other Contra games. If he's a brilliant scientist, he should have budget. Come on, Gio, work with us. Alright, now for the 2-color Rubik's Cube with a baby inside. Celestial Imperator. You destroy the arms. I swear there were arms at some point. They were just gone too fast. So there are 2 arms left with... Well, there were also 2 arms there at some point. Now on to the boss. There was also a boss there at some point. I just didn't get to commentate on it. Can you explain yourself, Aaron? Yeah, sure. Okay. So one day I'll commentate on such a boss for Sayuri, but clearly today's not the day. So we will immediately proceed to stage 6, which we know is the train level. Okay, so this stage is pretty on rails. It has no reason to be a train wreck. Listen, I was also keeping that joke since the first run. Anyway, so a lot of what's going on here is enemy management done up close. Sure, the sword projectile can be very useful, but it's very rare that the game will limit it to only 2 enemies on the screen. So Sayuri here, like Bahamut, does have the iframes to make this part of the game a lot easier by simply ignoring most of the obstacles. The enemy presence gets a lot messier later in the level, as you guys may have seen in the previous runs, which causes a little bit of a problem because you have to start being everywhere at once, especially if you fire one of your sword projectiles and it misses. Then you're catching up with the game and the enemy spawns, which means that instead of being comfortable in your own routing, you have to start chasing things around, which increases the danger for your character and therefore jeopardizes the entire execution. Everything here is sort of expected to be on a imaginary global timer, where enemies are expected to die at a certain time, and which is how the game loads the different segments. It constantly checks on screen to see if these enemies have been defeated. The sooner you get to defeat them, the sooner that the game will refresh the screen and see that the enemies are gone, loading the next segment, sending you further into the level. Alright, some more enemy and wagon management. Everything is going very well and according to plan. Now, something I want to point out before I run out of time is that the mini-boss that we're about to see is no different than from a gun user. In fact, it's actually easier. Sayuri does not give, or barely gives, that mini-boss's segment time to appear on the screen, or for their life bars to even show at all. So the positioning remains the same, the direction of aiming also remains the same, except you barely need to do anything. The moment her blade touches these fragments of, or these pieces of the boss, the moment it's over. So the transformer here is supposed to have a life bar. No time to commentate on him. Okay, so this boss fight right here is easier than ever before. And you will soon see why. Yeah. So normally there's a boss fight here, but we've been denied that.
Poorly trained.
Time to blast off in stage 7.
A true warrior.
Huh? Where is he?
At this point, this barely needs any introduction. Stage 7 is, as I said before, the equivalent of an older Contra game on its own. It's got an incredibly varied level design, a ton of enemies to deal with. It's very action-packed. It's got a very, very interesting mini-boss, and it has an even greater, I don't want to say end boss appearance, but like a greater cinematic feel near the end. Also, this is indeed an elevator segment. Feel free to drink water if you need, pet your dog, think about your feelings. Look at your calendar. Do your taxes. Picking up your girlfriend from work. Playing mahjong. Rescuing fish. Learning how to play solitaire. Learn a new language. Learn how to code. Doing the dishes. Just doing the dishes in and of itself is pretty taxing. So if you choose that option, don't do any of the other ones. Although you should pick up your girlfriend from work. Alright, now for a segment that can mostly be ignored. Or completely ignored. Forget what I just said. Moving on. We're making our way into the left exit, in which we'll be climbing the building from the exterior. Now, there are two extremely important skips here on where you die on purpose in order to spawn back hanging onto the building. Normally there would be helicopter sections where you would be locked and forced to battle helicopters that are scripted encounters there. But by doing this exploit, you skip both of them and spare yourself some misery and save a lot of time. This isn't a elevator segment, it's a panic room. God, they never end. They don't stop coming and they don't stop coming and... Alright. Fearlessly moving on, still shredding everything in sight. Now the usual method here is the damage boost on the right side to, climb faster, but with the iframes and Sayuri's godly movement, we don't need to think about any of that and just climb it like it's a regular thing. Now the Leviathan chase is going to be very interesting with Sayuri. A sword while chasing someone who uses a gun and grenades. Here we go, full speed. Sayuri actually matches that speed perfectly, but still needs to dodge things from time to time. All right, excellent chase. Leviathan barely had time to do anything there, such as existing. Moving on with the umbrella segment, which again Sayuri completely ignores. Now chasing Leviathan just to deplete his health bar and moving on into the Knight Lunata boss fight. An immediate barrage of sword slashes and fire projectiles. And a fight that ends prematurely. Very good execution, and now reaching the top of the tower. If you've grown up in the 90s, you know a villain is not a real villain if he doesn't escape before the protagonist gets to him. Again, I know what this boss looks like, it's not what you think. Perfect execution. Excellent. Every single frame of this was perfect. And now moving on to stage 8. And stage 8 with Sayuri is quite a show. Now's the time to brace yourselves because this is going to be climactic. No pressure, Aaron.
Unforgivable.
For stage 8, absolutely everything that you've seen now has to be interpreted differently. The stage is still as crowded as it ever was before and still just as active, with the hazards coming in from the background, the missiles, the lasers, the other battleship that is going to try to crush you, except this time you have a sword, iframes, and incredible movement at the same time in order to get through it all. With a gun user, this segment could be wiped out very comfortably at times, especially if you had something like the laser and the heated plasma. However, in this case, you can only take care of what's immediately in front of you, rather than what's all the way on the other side of the screen. Your only real solution to this is to keep a charge shot that you're going to release at appropriate times, which means they all have to be very, and I do mean very, calculated. Right now, for a very, very safe and effective strat, boosting yourself, clinging onto the left, and continuing the climb all the way to Vitus Engine. A small bump, using top route, catching back up, and reaching Vitus Engine, which is going to be a very interesting fight using the sword. The ability to destroy the the Vitus engine ball itself is a little different because, as you may have noticed, every time it takes damage, it switches direction. And Sayori's blade is not as long as the laser was, which means that he is going to switch direction very fast, many times. The best you can do is keep slashing and throw a charge shot with it. Now, as for the power balls, they're actually the most dangerous aspect of this fight, because if they push you down and you've destroyed the last of them at the same time, you will not be able to climb and grab onto the ceiling to make this fight cakewalk. And with Sayori, given the fact that you need to reposition yourself to destroy them, means that you increase the risk every single time. Alright, now with the Vitus engine going at full speed, bam, got it. One more stretch of this level and we reach Tiberius, phase 1, 2, and 3. Please note that this last stretch of level is something that Sayori will simply float above because he has the arsenal of a god. Yeah, that's what I meant. And now for the final boss. Excellent. Sayori is more than adequate for this. Stand still next to the boss and just slash away, which equates to holding down one button in rising mode. Second phase down. Now entering the third phase, which is the one with the falling debris and the terrain that you can sabotage for yourself and your partner in co-op. Tiberius Invictus can be quite a stressful fight with Sayori on arcade mode. Maybe not in Rising, given the incredible, and I do mean incredible mobility. But on arcade it becomes quite limited, and you don't have the benefit of having long-range attacks. So it becomes, at all times, very up-close and personal, with little to no backup. And now that Tiberius Invictus is defeated, this concludes the final character run. And I would like to just quickly take this time to thank Aaron for choosing me as his commentator. It has been a real pleasure and an honor to be the one who got to do this. Thank you very much, and I had a great time. And GG and congrats on your runs.
So yeah, thanks for the run and thanks for the great commentary. And let me switch scene. Yeah, and that's all for this one. Thanks for watching it. Yeah. Aaron, you can stop screen sharing and stop the stream. Yeah, and with that, I wish you a great night, and we see us tomorrow again for day 3. It should be already. Have a good night and